Have you ever sat quietly with your own thoughts, thinking back to the people who once made you feel seen, really seen, but now they barely acknowledge your presence? Maybe it's a grown child who used to call every weekend, and now the phone sits silent. Maybe it's a friend who once invited you everywhere, but now you're left out more often than not. It stings, doesn't it? That shift in how someone treats you, like you're no longer important in their life, it can weigh on your spirit in ways that few things can. But here's the thing I want you to know from the very start. The way someone else treats you does not define your worth. I know that's easy to say and harder to believe, especially when you've given so much. Your time, your care, your love, and now it feels like you're just there. Overlooked, undervalued, invisible. That's why today we're going to have a heart-to-heart conversation, not just about how to deal with being treated that way, but how to take back control of your life, your emotions, and your sense of self. Because no matter your age, you still have power. And not only do you deserve to be respected, you deserve to be at peace. You see, when someone starts to devalue you, the most natural reaction is to do more. Call them more. Be more available. Be more giving. Try harder to prove your love, your loyalty, your worth. That's what many of us were raised to do, especially if you've spent your life nurturing others, being the caretaker, the one people could rely on. But here's the surprising truth. That instinct to give more, it often leads to even less respect. When you chase someone's attention or validation, you're putting your value into their hands and hoping they'll give it back. And that's not where your power lives. Instead of doing more, the most powerful thing you can do is step back. I know, that sounds counterintuitive, maybe even scary. But hear me out. When you step back, not in anger, not with bitterness, but with quiet strength, you create space. And that space does something powerful. It allows the other person to notice your absence. When you're no longer immediately available, when you're no longer trying to win their approval, it shifts the balance. It reminds them that your presence was not a given. It was a gift. Now let's be clear. This isn't about playing mind games. It's not about manipulation. It's about reclaiming your time, your energy, and your dignity. Stepping back means turning inward, not away from the world, but toward yourself. When someone stops valuing you, that is not the time to bend. That is the time to rise. And rising doesn't have to mean confrontation. It doesn't have to mean big, dramatic exits. Sometimes rising just looks like choosing yourself first, again and again. So how do you do that, practically speaking? Start by paying attention to how much energy you give away to people who don't give it back. Notice where you feel drained after a conversation. Notice who leaves you second-guessing yourself. Notice how often you're the one making the effort. And then, give yourself permission to stop. That silence you sit in, let it become sacred. Use that space to nourish yourself. Reconnect with the things that bring you joy. Maybe it's something as simple as morning walks while the air is still cool. Maybe it's that old piano in the corner that's been collecting dust. Maybe it's a book you've been meaning to read or a garden you've been meaning to tend. Because here's what happens when you shift your focus inward. You start to glow again. You carry yourself differently. People notice. You become magnetic, not because you're trying to be, but because you're centered. You're whole. And people are drawn to that kind of self-possession, even the very people who once overlooked you. And sometimes they come back. They realize what they lost. They call. They apologize. They want to reconnect. But sometimes they don't. And that's okay too. Because when you focus on becoming the fullest version of yourself, you don't depend on others to fill your cup. You don't need their approval to feel worthy. You don't need their constant attention to feel alive. You become your own source of validation. You become someone who knows what they deserve and accepts nothing less. This is especially important later in life. Not because we have less time, but because we have less time to waste. Every day matters. Every interaction either lifts you or drains you. And you owe it to yourself to spend these years being cherished, not tolerated. You've already carried so much in life: families, careers, losses, responsibilities. You've earned the right to live freely, not cling tightly to people who don't see your value. Let them go if that's what needs to happen. Let the space between you be a mirror for them to see what they've taken for granted and for you to remember what you're truly made of. Now, this process isn't always easy. There will be days when the silence feels loud, when you question yourself, when you wonder if stepping back was the right thing. But I promise you, every time you choose peace over chasing, self-worth over sacrifice, you grow stronger. And when people see that strength, whether it's your children, old friends, or anyone else, they will either rise to meet your new standard, or they will walk away. Either way, you win. Because you're no longer waiting for someone else to make you feel whole, you are standing in your own power, and you're just getting started. You see, one of the biggest lies we're taught, especially those of us who grew up in a different time, is that our value is tied to how useful we are to others. How much we give, how much we sacrifice. And that lie can follow us well into our later years. It whispers to us when the house grows quiet, when no one calls, when holidays are celebrated without us. It says, maybe you're not needed anymore. But the truth is, you are not just here to be useful. You are here to be whole. You are here to be loved, respected, and at peace. Not because of what you do for others, but because of who you are. And sometimes, remembering that means making hard choices. It means letting go of roles you've outgrown, of expectations that no longer serve you, of relationships that only thrive when you shrink yourself. Let's talk about boundaries, because they go hand in hand with stepping back. A boundary isn't a wall. It's a door with a lock, a way of saying, this is what I welcome and this is what I won't allow. When someone continuously ignores your feelings, takes you for granted, or speaks to you in ways that wear down your spirit, it's not unkind to set a boundary. It's necessary. Maybe that boundary looks like saying no when you'd usually say yes. Maybe it means limiting how often you reach out to someone who never initiates. Maybe it's choosing not to attend every event where you're made to feel small or out of place. At first, people may not like this new version of you. They may push back, question your change, but that's okay. Their discomfort is not your responsibility. And slowly, the right people, the ones who truly care for you, will start showing up differently. They'll recognize your worth because you've shown them how to treat you by how you treat yourself. Now, this journey doesn't mean you stop loving people. You don't have to stop caring about your children, your friends, or anyone else in your life. Love doesn't disappear just because respect is missing. But love without boundaries becomes martyrdom. And you were not put on this earth to be a martyr. Think about the garden you might have tended when you were younger. You watered it, pruned it, gave it sunlight, and when certain plants didn't thrive, you didn't blame yourself endlessly. You adjusted. You pulled out weeds to make room for growth. Relationships are the same. If something isn't blooming, it may not be your fault. It might just be time to make space for something else, something healthier, something that grows with you. You might be wondering, but what if they never change? What if I lose them for good? And that fear is real. Letting go always carries a risk. But here's a deeper truth. Holding on to people who devalue you also carries a cost. That cost is your peace, your confidence, your energy. And frankly, your joy. You deserve to live your life without constantly wondering why you're not enough for someone. You are enough. Always have been. The question isn't whether they'll come back. The real question is, do you really want to keep shrinking yourself just to fit into someone else's narrow view of your worth? Let's flip the script. Instead of asking, why don't they value me? Try asking, why am I giving so much power to someone who doesn't? Instead of saying, "I wish they treated me better," say, "I'm choosing to treat myself better." That shift changes everything. Because when you start living with that mindset, your life begins to open. You begin to attract people and experiences that mirror your self-respect. You begin to notice opportunities where before you saw only rejection. You stop chasing and start receiving. And what you receive might surprise you. It might be peace. It might be a rekindled passion, art, writing, movement, travel. It might be a new friend, someone who sees you for who you are, and not just who you used to be to someone else. It might even be a phone call from that person who once overlooked you because they finally realize what they lost. But whether they do or don't, that's not the point anymore. Because by then, you'll have already taken back what was always yours: your time, your energy, your voice, your sense of worth. And you'll be stronger for it. So if you're sitting there right now, heart heavy from being ignored or misunderstood, take a deep breath with me. Remind yourself that you are not invisible. You are not a burden. You are not forgotten. You are a living, breathing soul with decades of wisdom, laughter, pain, love, and that deserves reverence. Start treating yourself that way. Because when you do, others will have no choice but to rise to meet you, or quietly leave the space they never deserved to take up. You are not alone in this. Many people, especially in this season of life, find themselves reassessing relationships, redefining priorities, rediscovering who they are outside the roles they once played. This is not a sign of loss. It's a sign of rebirth. And just because you're older doesn't mean you stop evolving. In fact, it might just be the perfect time to become the most authentic version of yourself. No more pretending, no more pleasing, just truth, just peace. There's a quiet kind of power that comes with age, not the loud kind that demands the spotlight, but the steady kind that comes from living, learning, and letting go. You've walked through storms and sunshine. You've held people through their darkest moments. You've lost things you never thought you'd survive losing. And yet, here you are, still standing, still growing, still capable of writing new chapters. That's what this moment is, really. A new chapter. When someone no longer values you, it can feel like a door slamming shut. But maybe it's actually a window opening, a space clearing, a nudge from life itself saying, now it's time for you. There's something beautiful about realizing you don't have to chase love or friendship or respect, that you don't need to explain yourself to anyone who has already decided not to listen, that the right people don't need convincing. They just need presence, your presence. And that starts with you showing up for yourself. Start by doing one small thing each day that's just for you. Not because it proves anything, not because it earns anything, but because it brings you joy. Sit in the sun with your morning tea. Call a neighbor and share a laugh. Write something down that's been sitting in your heart. Rearrange your space so it feels more like you and less like a reminder of what used to be. And while you're doing those small things, remind yourself, you are not waiting for anyone to give you permission to live fully. You already have that permission. You always did. Now, some days, old habits will creep in. You might feel the pull to reach out again, to try to fix things, to break the silence, to smooth over the cracks someone else caused. And that's okay. You're human. We all want connection. But when that pull comes, ask yourself, am I doing this from a place of strength or from fear of being alone? Because there's a big difference between being alone and being lonely. Alone is peaceful. Alone is spacious. Alone gives you room to breathe, to think, to hear your own voice again. Loneliness, on the other hand, often comes when we abandon ourselves trying to hold on to others. That's why coming back to yourself is the real work. Learning how to enjoy your own company. How to speak kindly to yourself. How to sit in silence without feeling like something's missing. Because the truth is, Nothing's missing. You are whole, even when others don't see it. Even when they walk away. Especially then. And here's something else to hold on to. You get to start over as many times as you need to. There is no age limit on joy. No expiration date on friendship. No rule that says the best years are behind you. That's just a story the world tells to keep older people quiet. But you don't have to accept that story. You can write a new one. One where you are the main character again. Not the afterthought. Not the background. You can be the one who wakes up excited. Who starts painting again. Who joins that walking group. Who finally says no without guilt. Who finally says yes to something they've always wanted to do, but never dared. Whether it's dancing in the kitchen or traveling alone or just sitting with your own company and realizing it's enough. And when you do that, when you take back your energy from the people who wasted it, you'll start to notice something magical. Peace will return. So will clarity. You'll start attracting people who see your value without you having to explain it. People who want to sit with you, not for what you give them, but for who you are. And if they don't come, that's okay too. Because by then, you'll already have found something even better. You'll have found yourself. So the next time someone doesn't return your call, or forgets your birthday, or speaks to you like your time doesn't matter, pause. Don't lash out. Don't shrink. Don't scramble to fix it. Just breathe. Step back. Protect your peace. Redirect your focus. And remember, you don't need to be chosen by others to choose yourself. You don't need to be remembered to be relevant. You don't need to be surrounded to be strong. You don't need to be needed to be enough. You already are. Now go live like it. Go for a walk and feel the breeze that no one else can take away from you. Go into the kitchen and cook a meal that makes you smile. Put on that song you used to love and let it remind you that your spirit is still alive, still vibrant, still capable of dancing. Because you haven't lost your value, not for a second. You've just been giving it away to people who stopped seeing it. But now you're taking it back. Sometimes the most powerful shift in our lives doesn't come from a grand event. It comes quietly. In a morning where you wake up and decide, I'm no longer waiting for someone else to treat me right before I do it myself. It comes in a moment when you no longer try to convince anyone of your worth because you've finally remembered it for yourself. You see, self-respect doesn't shout. It doesn't beg. It doesn't chase. It simply stands, firm, gentle, steady. And when you begin to stand in that kind of self-respect, everything around you starts to change. Not all at once, not with fireworks, but little by little, like sunlight filtering through a window you forgot to open. It might start with better sleep at night, because your heart isn't carrying so much anymore. It might look like people around you being a little more careful with your time. It might mean hearing the word no come out of your own mouth and not apologizing for it. That is the strength of someone who has learned the value of their own presence. And when you carry yourself with that quiet confidence, life begins to meet you differently. Maybe you reconnect with someone who sees you with fresh eyes. Maybe you make a new friend over morning walks. Maybe you start finding joy in things you once put aside for the sake of others. Or maybe, best of all, you find peace in your own company. You smile at yourself in the mirror. You hum a song in the kitchen. You walk slower, not because you're tired, but because you're finally not rushing for anyone else's approval. Because the truth is, the more you honor yourself, the less you tolerate dishonor from anyone else. You don't need loud declarations or dramatic goodbyes. You simply adjust the volume on who gets access to your energy. You stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. And you stop accepting crumbs of attention from people who once feasted on your kindness. Instead, you feed your own soul. You nourish your own heart. You choose people who choose you, not out of obligation, but because they genuinely care. And you stop wasting time trying to repair what someone else keeps breaking. Let them go if they need to. Let the distance speak. Let the silence teach them what your presence meant. And while they figure it out or don't, you go on living. Fully, deeply, unapologetically. Because this stage of life is not a fading out. It's a return, a reclaiming. A beautiful reminder that your time is still yours to shape, your joy is still yours to feel, and your voice is still powerful enough to change the atmosphere around you. So if no one has told you this today, let me say it clearly. You matter. Your story still matters. And your presence in this world is still a gift. You don't have to keep proving anything to anyone. Not after all you've been through. You don't need to shrink to fit into spaces that no longer welcome you. You don't need to chase people who don't see the richness of your soul. Instead, walk toward what makes you feel alive. Speak to those who listen. Care for those who care back. And above all, live in a way that reflects the truth you now know. You are deeply, wonderfully, and irrevocably worthy. Now I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever stepped back from someone who stopped valuing you? What did that feel like? What helped you find your peace again? Share your thoughts in the comments. We're building a space here where honesty and healing go hand in hand. And if this message spoke to your heart, take a moment to like the video. Subscribe to the channel for more conversations like this one. Real, supportive, and made just for you. Because you are not alone. There's a whole community here that sees you, hears you, and walks this journey beside you. Thank you for spending your time with me today. Go gentle with yourself. Be kind to that beautiful soul of yours. And remember, peace isn't found in the noise of trying to be enough for others. It's found in the quiet, steady decision to know you already are. Here's to living your best life at any age. I'll see you in the next video.